והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו.
I am one of the very blessed people living in Eretz Israel. My family on my father's side go back a bunch of generations in Yerushalayim. My great-grandparents on my father's side and one generation before that are buried on Har HaZeitim. I was born, as you can understand from the accent, in Brooklyn. And I reversed the trend and came here to Eretz Israel to learn in Shivat Merkaz Rav Kook in the year of the Six-Day War. That, along with my father and my family living here, had a tremendous influence on me. And my decision was to come and live in Eretz Israel, which I did in Tashla, which is 1971. I was involved, I lived in a small town called Mevaseret Yerushalayim, outside of Yerushalayim. And then, Me'et Hashem, as we say, from the good Lord, I was at a demonstration which involved Henry Kissinger, who wanted to try to get the United States to uproot us from the lands that we had recaptured and freed in the 1967-68 war. And at that demonstration, I saw this young lady who, after a while, became my wife. And her family was and is very much involved in the Gush Emanim movement, which was the movement that put up to resettle Yehuda v'Shomron, Judea and Samaria. And so it was in my heart to begin with, and so now I fell right into the right family. They were and are some of the leaders of the movement of Gush Emanim. Today it's less known the name, but the movement, of course, is very successful. The Mintz family, my father-in-law Abraham, and my brother-in-law Yehuda, who's very much involved in many causes for Eretz Israel, and I moved right into that. And we had the honor, the privilege, the challenge of coming to Shilo, where you are right now, at the end of the first year of the re-existence of Shilo. Shilo. People, when I guide, I'm a tour guide also, ask me why did I choose Shilo, and after I say to them, wait until you come to Shilo, and then the answer should be obvious. And generally it is. Shilo was the first capital of Eretz Israel. Yeshua ben crosses over the Yarden about 3,300 years back, and after 7 years of fighting the other people living here, and since Google Earth wasn't around, he needed to send messengers, people who mapped the land, and then 7 years later we come to Shilo and establish this is the first capital where the tribes, 8 of the tribes got their land from Goral. The Mishkan was here for 369 years. That's almost the same amount of time as the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. This was one of the most famous and important sites in our history. And Avotenu, our grandparents, lived here. Now we know from the archaeological excavations up until after the Bar Kokhba rebellion, meaning there was 1,500 years, 1,600 years of straight Jews, my grandparents, of them living right over here. Then it was destroyed, most probably by the Philistines, and laid barren, like most of Eretz Israel did, throughout all the generations, waiting for us to come back. And my wife and I were privileged and honored, as I said before, in the challenge of being some of the first families here in Shilo. And at the very beginning, when we started the village, we davened down in an ancient building that we had repaired. And on Friday night, Leil Shabbat, when we turned Chadodi to welcome in the Shabbat, so we would be turning, and my face would inevitably look back at the ancient city of Shilo, which was destroyed, and I would say Shmuel, of course meaning Shmuel and Navi, but that was my relationship to him. Shmuel, here we are, we're back. We have returned to the land that you were so much involved in. And to me, that is basically the kernel of my reason of being here.
Amazing.
Would you recommend it for the Jews of the world to come to Shilo to experience our ancient history?
Absolutely.
It's incredible. Just incredible.
קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת שעשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת שעשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת שעשית את עבדך.
Eretz Avotenu, literally and factually and actually, taking any step outside the door of my house, looking any way you want to look, walking any way you want to look, you're back in the time of Avotenu. The road down the street for me is nicknamed improperly so Derech Avot, or our forefathers' road. It's hard to find anybody in the entire Tanakh who didn't walk on that road. And now we are doing exactly that in our own way and rebuilding, have rebuilt it, continuing to rebuilding. And in terms of that, it's an amazing feeling to kayem that, to fulfill the mitzvah of resettling in Eretz Yisrael. To live in overseas, outside of Eretz Yisrael today, and what's going on, you have to have a lot of strength to do so, because it's all here. Kadosh Baruch Hu, the good Lord, chose why. That you can ask him, send him a fax. But he chose that this generation, these generations, the last 2 or 3 generations, if a generation is 20 years, 25 years, have the honor that he chose that this is the time that we come back to Eretz Yisrael. And the gates are open. It's a quick, plain ride away to come back and live here and be part of the rebuilding. So there were times it was difficult to be here and the economy wasn't that good and all kinds of good reasons. None of those reasons are really valid today. The economy is good and there's plenty of place, and there's a big challenge and there's work to do, and people can find what they want to do and be part of the rebuilding. The 2 great Rabbanim of the generation before us, 2 generations before us, Rav Kook, Zecher Tzedek Livracha, and Rav Soloveitchik of New York, Boston, in their writings wrote that the morning prayer says, Elokai ad shenotzati kilu shenotzati v'ashav shenotati kilu shenotzati, the good Lord, until, translated into my words lightly, that basically until I was created, I wasn't created, and now that I'm created, what am I doing? And so they both say that a Yehudi has to say to himself, why did the Kadosh Baruch Hu create me in this generation? And what is my message to do? What do I have to do in my life? And this is the generation of rebuilding Eretz Yisrael.
You can go up that way or this way. It doesn't make a difference. This way's faster.
Hop in, guys. Got the door open. What if I go directly to this up there?
בני ישראל שילה, וישכינו שם את אוהל מועד. במשך 369 שנים הייתה שילה מקום המשכן, בירתה הראשונה של ישראל, לפני ירושלים. 12 אחים ירדו למצרים, ואחרי מאות שנים 12 שבטים חוזרים לארץ ישראל ומקימים כאן בשילה, ממש מתחתנו, את המשכן, מקום השראת השכינה.
As I said, my wife's family was very much involved in Gush Emunim, and I got involved through them in the same, because it's part of my heart and nefesh anyhow. And then we were my brother-in-law and his wife and my wife were the first two families. We were in families, couples at that point. We had recently been married to start Ofra, the first village that was north of Yerushalayim in Tashlach 1975. We were there for 2 years, and then Menachem Begin, in one of his orations over in Kidumin, he promised that he will establish a lot of Elonei Moreh. In other words, and at the same time, both of us were involved in social work, and we were offered a challenge to go to the Galil, very north of the country, which also needed a lot of Yehudim. And we went up to Tzfat to be involved in a Gesher foundation of Kiruv a bit, or getting Jews to understand each other. And after a year of enjoying it very much and doing some good work, at that point there was a group of families wanting to come to Shilo. We left the Galil and we came here, and we were the 9th or 10th family here 7 months after the village started, and we've been here since then. Indeed, the great need was here to get the village rebuilt, and agriculture in the area, and other villages that joined us. So Chazdei Hashem, the Lord has been excellent to us more than that, and we have been part of the rebuilding of the entire area.
From Lawrence, New York, and this is the second or third time that I'm coming to visit Shilo to reinforce what I've learned throughout my 60 years about the importance of the land of Israel to the Jewish people, and to reinforce it for myself and my own observance and religious beliefs. It's one thing reading about it in the Chumash and Tanakh. It's another thing actually being here that just makes the experience come alive and more meaningful to me as a Jew.
It's still cool. When they came here, they said that flat plateau fits perfectly the description, because it says that in the battle where we lost the ark to the Philistines, right, which that Eli was already blind, but he was sitting in a spot so that if somebody were coming up the road, they'd get to him first, right by the Mishkan. In other words, from today's road was the ancient road, and that would have been the road where they would have come from the Battle of Afek, the area of Petach Tikva. They would have come up this way like Ariel, in that direction. So they're coming here, they'd come to him. It's sort of like, in those days, the entrance, because you don't want everybody traipsing through the city necessarily to go to the Mishkan, so there's an entrance right off the road. Okay, and he's waiting to get the news. Eli the Kohen. The next community, by the way, is called Eli, after him. So he was the high priest, he was the Kohen, and when they told him what happened, he fell over and died. In other words, that we lost the Aron. okay, because it was very traumatic for him. So the area that they're digging down there, you see there's some very thick-looking walls, right? So already I was brought here, this was, I'll tell you what year, 1974, by Rabbi Yoel Ben Nun, who's both a rabbi and a researcher, does some archaeological stuff and that sort of thing. And he said this is where it was. But what reinforces it, guys, there was a halakha, a very interesting, simple halakha, that certain kelim, certain utensils, when you used it bringing your sacrifice, had to be broken and not taken away from the area. Kelim? Okay, went on these hills, guys. There's an area that you get on a ring all around you here. That hill, that hill, that hill. Same area. Below it, you find the remains of the broken pottery. Beyond it, nothing. And it fits exactly the dimensions that the halacha gives for that. So he said there's no question, just from the finds out there, that this is the focus over here where the Mishkan was, because people would eat the sacrifice. They had to see the place. So they're up the slope there, up the slope there, up the slope there, and seeing it, and not going beyond and breaking their utensils afterwards. And that's the pottery that we find. And then up beyond a certain level, nothing.
We're here in Shilo, in a building that was created as a replica of the Mishkan that was first brought to this place. Today it's not just a museum, but it's a working synagogue.
Looking south from our porch, you're looking at the mountain range of Binyamin. That is the Harei Beit El, and that is the border of the tribe of Binyamin south of us, going towards Yerushalayim. On top of the mountain, a bit to the middle of it, there is Israel's fourth highest mountain in the modern-day state of Israel, and that is Baal Chatzor. And on it, according to tradition, there were three major episodes. Number one, that is where, according to Yosef Flavius, where Yehuda Maccabi fell in his last battle against the Greeks. Number two, that is where we used to light bonfires to announce the new moon, Rosh Chodesh, coming in. It was the second mountain. And third, and maybe even more challenging, is that in the parsha, in the weekly portion of Lech Lecha, when God commands Avram to leave, so he and Lot, his cousin, were having a debate. Some say even more than that. And Avram says to Lot, listen, we can't live together. There's not enough room for us. And Rashi says the reason is the culture that Lot was allowing his farmers to be in land that was not his. And Avram said, you go to the north, I go to the south. You go to the east, I go to the west. And Lot looked at the Jordan River Valley, which was all green and lush, and he said, why do I need these hard mountains? And so he took the Jordan River Valley, and then 5 sentences later it says, the good Lord looks at Abraham or says to Abraham and says the following, pick up your eyes, or lift up your eyes and see, north, south, east, west, as far as you can see, whatever you can see, this is the land that promised you and your children forever. In 1947, we found the Qumran caves, inside that the Dead Sea Scrolls. One of them called the Scroll of Genesis. Inside it says that the mountain that Hashem showed Avram Avinu all of Eretz Yisrael is the mountain that you are now looking at directly across the valley, Baal Chatzor. And the rest you can take from me. I've been there many, many times. On a clear day, you see from that mountain, not over here, from that mountain, you see far north as the Hermon, and you see all of Israel from Haifa all the way down to Gaza. You see Yerushalayim, it's like the palm of your hand. You see the Salt Sea. You see over in Taman, Jordan. Basically, all of the land that we have right now. Holding in my hand a silver coin. It's not the silver coin used in the Beit HaMikdash, but it's beautiful. It has a lot of meaning to it. Zot Nachalatenu Chemdatenu. This is the eternal Jewish heartland. But in the translation of those words, this is our heartland, our what was given to us by the good Lord, and our beautiful and very special one. And the map has of Ephraim and Binyamin, and we indeed are located in Ephraim. Shilo is in the tribe of Ephraim, and right opposite the windows of my house I see the tribe of Binyamin, and I see the tribe of Yehuda, and I also see the tribe of Reuven and tribe of Gad and Chasishev and Menashe. I can basically from my window see almost 7 of the tribes, of the area of the tribes. This coin is just right in the right hand in terms of the beauty of it and the entire map of this area. And Be'ezrat Hashem, the good Lord, will give it to all back the way He promised.